So it's a track with air in it.
It is. So,
Basically.
so the name, so the name PneuTrac.
Pneumatic track.
Pneumatic.
Yeah.
Most of your viewers probably know pneumatic just means a tyre with air.
Yeah.
And track is a track. So PneuTrac, half tyre, half track.
Ladies and gents, hello and welcome along to another customer review from LandPowerTV.com. This time it is a proper interesting one because not only are we on an apple growing farm in Kent, we're also going to be checking out some pretty interesting tyre technology. So before we get stuck into the owners and the operator thoughts on these Trelleborg PneuTrac tyres, we're going to have a catch up with Craig Churston from Trelleborg to start with, who's going to give us a bit of technical insight on these tyres.
Yep, so this is our PneuTrac. We are the only major tyre manufacturer to offer anything like that, so with the cup technology and the Omega sidewall, as we call it. So offering, the best of both worlds. It's half track, half tyre.
Yeah, so in terms of the half track element, because of this sort of, I suppose you could say, inward collapsing sidewall, you then get your long track. Is that how it sort of plays out? Yeah,
exactly. So that the cup technology in there, it flexes down, creates a really long footprint, getting 2 or 3 more lugs on the ground under optimal tyre pressure. When we think of a normal radial tyre now, or even the VF tyres and that on larger machines, it's all, they collapse and they all sort of go out. You can only go out wider, whereas this goes long. So it stays in there.
And inwards.
And inwards,
Which is weird.
Yeah. So
just talk us through like the construction of this. Are these sidewalls maybe thicker than your regular sidewall to cope with this flexation going like that?
Yeah, absolutely. They're very heavy. They are a heavy tyre, but for these small machines and that, makes a difference, helps.
That's a good thing.
Get that weight to the ground. Lots of flexion in here. You can see lots of different parts. Very little sidewall.
Yeah.
So huge advantages for stability on the hilly country, huge in Europe.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because you look at this tyre from the outset, and I can understand, this flexation and getting the long footprint.
Yeah.
But talk to me about stability, because looking at it, you think, oh, hang on, that's going to collapse, but not.
No, not. That's one of the advantages it takes from a track. It has that long footprint, very wide and stable here. Any flexing it will do, with a normal tyre and sidewall will flex like that. This will not move anywhere.
That's a good point. You're not going to get that roll effect.
So 2 things with that, amazing stability and comfort, as opposed to a track or even a conventional tyre, the bounce and stuff you get. The absorbing properties of all these little sections, and that is amazing. Some of the guys, it's not what we consider a huge selling point for it, but the guys mention it and they love it. These little machines, not suspended cabs and not have some of the technology of the bigger machines, and the guys that get in and drive it, all helps with that.
So it's a track with air in it.
It is. So the name, PneuTrac.
Pneumatic track.
Pneumatic. Most of your viewers probably know pneumatic just means a tyre with air.
Yeah.
And track is a track. So PneuTrac, half tyre, half track. So all those good properties of a track. Good grip, no sort of vibration, no shaking. It absorbs all those bumps over ruts and things like that. Extra long footprint. 20 to 30% less soil compaction
than a regular equivalent sort of tyre, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big chunk then.
It is, and it's a huge part of it for these guys in the fruit and vine, going up very narrow rows, repeatedly spraying all the time, close. They're right on the edge, very close to delicate roots and stuff. That percentage over time makes a huge difference, and it's a big thing for a lot of people.
That's it. They're literally driving over the roots that are going under the tractor, aren't they?
Yeah, so that less soil compaction is very important and a big selling point of it.
And what size tyres do you do with this NeuTrac?
Yeah, so at the moment, for us, it is specialised into the small machines, the narrow vineyard stuff. So 28-inch rears and 18 and 20-inch fronts.
Right.
So we have a configuration, you know, there's a bit to it, checking the mechanical leads and stuff, but we've got a combination now for most of the manufacturers, new narrow tyres. So most of the guys are making something in this in every manufacturer.
Right.
So we've got that, and we've just come out with our new one, which is 24 and 16.
Got you.
So this is the 480, 65, 28. We do a slightly narrower 420, 70, 28, which combines, depending on the mechanical lead and that, with a 280, 70, 18 or a 280, 70, 20. Right.
And do these tyres take much setting up at all in terms of, you know, trying to get the pressures right for the right application?
Not really. Like anything, tyre pressure is important. They're taking probably a third of the air of a normal tyre.
Yeah, because you've got this inverted sidewall.
Yeah, exactly, and the long footprint. So, no, I mean, once you get it right, we can, you know, if people are interested, we'll come out, set it up, and weigh it like everything, do an optimization on it and that. But no, most of the guys, they're using the same equipment, that same sprayer, have it set up. So yeah, you probably can have these down to, you know, 11 or 12.
Right.
Yeah, PSI running, and just getting that right, and then they just, have to play with it.
So not a lot of air in there?
No, not a lot of air. No.
There you go. Yeah. And then on, you know, around the outside of the tyre, we've got your famous tread pattern. What we're calling this one?
Progressive traction.
Progressive traction tyre. So just explain this a little bit as well.
Yeah, so our progressive traction, dual lug. So the two lugs there, you see the second lug for grip, and again, less vibration on the road. Not that these smaller machines do a lot on the road. And then also the terrace lugs inside for breaking up in the wetter conditions, breaking up the mud and stuff like that, and keeping that tread area clear. But yeah, the two lugs, if it's at optimum pressure, you're getting two bites at it on the ground there.
Right.
And yeah, in the dual lug. So yeah, we see that in getting more and more models coming out with that now, right through the TM800, 900 and the 1000 VFs.
There you go. So finally, Craig, just sort of summarise why the NeuTrac from Trelleborg is just the ideal tyre choice for this specialist application that we see ourselves in today.
Yeah, well, as I think we'll see, you know, a lot of these smaller machines, unlike the normal tractors, can be towing, you know, heavy sprayers and stuff that are heavier than the tractor themselves, going up and down hills and doing repeated work in wetter conditions when they have to spray. So yeah, the grip, the traction, this is getting 20 to 30% sort of better traction than a normal tyre. The extra weight to it, getting that power to the ground for these smaller machines, all makes a huge difference. And yeah, as we're seeing, you know, we've had a lot of customers get one on their fleet, love it, and then want their whole fleet on it. So yeah, it sort of speaks for itself. It does make a huge difference in those key areas of traction, of grip, extending their season, and that less soil compaction around delicate root systems, and that all sort of, what I'd say, key features of it that make it a viable option. Perfect.
Well, Craig, thank you very much for that, for the insight on these NeuTrac tyres from Trelleborg, because they are very, very different, and yeah, just really interesting. Now, folks, we're going to move on and chat to David Figgis, whose place this is, and we're going to get his thoughts on how he's been getting on with these tyres. So all that coming up next. Right, folks, we now move on to the star of the show, Mr. David Figgis, whose place this is. And before we dive into these NeuTrac tyres from Trelleborg and what you think of them and how you've got on with them, first of all, David, if you could tell me a little bit about your business.
We've been farming here since 1936, when my grandfather took over the farm. In that time, we have doubled it in area. It used to be a general farm, growing vegetables, strawberries, cows and apples. Now we've simplified the business right down, just growing apples, a few plums and 1,000 turkeys.
And the apples that you're producing, where do they end up? What they're going for?
We have supplied every supermarket in the UK over the last couple of years, ranging whole way from Co-op through to M&S. The big building beside you here is full of cold stores, which are all controlled atmosphere to be able to allow the storage to continue. We've still got 1,000 bins still to go, and they'll be sold by probably the end of July.
Okay.
And then we start picking again, end of July, August for the next year. Different varieties,
Yeah.
they store for different times. Some of them might only last a couple of days.
Yeah.
Some of them might last 12, 13 months.
All right. So,
And they all go to a huge pack house near Canterbury for grading and moving on to the supermarkets from there.
there you go. And how many varieties would you grow?
I think my son worked out we got 11, and we're
Right.
planting 2 new ones over the next 3 years. And he moans he'd like to only have 3, but spreading gives you far better harvesting time because
Yeah.
you're not doing it all on the same day. And if one's good or bad that year, you're more likely to survive.
Right. So these.
Why have we gone in for these?
Exactly.
silly
Trelleborg
tyres?
PneuTrac. Why these? Because
Well,
they are different. Very
I
different.
looked seriously at buying a Caterpillar tractor.
Right.
There's one on the market that makes these look cheap, and it's a very complicated tractor, but it is bloody good.
Yeah.
But it's more limited. This is a standard tractor with the special tyres on.
Right.
It might not be as good, but it's good enough, and it works very, very well. So we bought our first ones. Well, I think we were first or second person in the country to buy them.
Okay.
And we bought the first pair, and we had an empty sprayer, and my son drove across a field that was brand new field, just being cultivated. You could see where the empty sprayer tyres had gone. You could see where the front tyres had gone,
Yeah.
but you couldn't actually see where the back tyres had gone.
Right.
This
This.
shows how good the low ground pressure
It just spread its weight
it
out.
spread its weight out. You wouldn't believe how heavy that wheel is. Empty tyres are colossally heavy. I went down to collect the original ones we first got from Haynes, and I thought, I'll just show them on my trailer. We needed a forklift to put them on the trailer, and the trailer grunted, and it's a 3.5 ton trailer. They are heavy, but we haven't taken them off. Well, the idea was to take them on and off regularly. We don't bother. They work nicely.
Yeah.
My son thinks they're wonderful because there's a bit of play in them, so they're nice and soft. And we've been very, very pleased so far with them. Apart from the cost, they are brilliant. Why have we had to do it? There are various reasons. One of which, quite simply, is the varieties we're growing nowadays are far more vulnerable to the main diseases. We tend to be picking apples later, but they come into flower earlier, and we're having to do more wet weather driving.
Right.
And the huge great machine you see behind you
I was going to
weighs,
say, this is big, this, isn't it?
this is quite cool. This is 2.5 ton, and so if you're carrying a heavy great lump, you're more likely to make ruts. I hate ruts. Any rut on the farm equals a bruised apple.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the main reasons we went for this. Although a lot of our farm is sand, we've also got some very heavy, cluggy London clay. And you put a tractor across there. This year hasn't been a problem. I bought 2 new sets of tyres, and we haven't needed them yet because it's been so bloody dry. But
Hey,
one day
it will change.
It will
change.
know it will change back. So because of the longer season, and of course modern chemicals aren't anything like as powerful as they used to be. So whereas you used to spray once a fortnight, you now spray every 5 days.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That often?
Yeah. And so we've really been very pleased with these, and it's interesting, 2 or 3 of my friends have had to bought them as well.
Once you've seen what?
Once they've seen that you can drive in the winter.
Yeah.
We're doing more winter jobs than we ever used to. Things like we cut roots in the middle of the winter to slow the trees down, because a growy tree is not a croppy tree. And if you're going through in December, you will make a mess. Put these tyres on, you don't make a mess.
Really?
So you're not compacting the ground, you're not upsetting the infrastructure of the ground.
So all round, it's providing you with a lot more flexibility and a bigger working window.
Yes.
Ultimately.
Yes. We have yet, touch wood, to have a puncher, but I gather you can just put a plug in them, same as any other tyre.
Right.
They're not, obviously to put them on and off is a bit more complicated.
Yeah, it's sort of inverted, isn't it?
Yes. And I don't want to have to find out how to do that,
Yeah.
but they work. We've got some that we've had now for 4 years.
And in terms of your wear rates, what are they like so far?
We've been very pleased with them. I don't want to replace them, they're bloody expensive, but they haven't worn yet.
And then these tyres, I mean, it's a very interesting construction. I mean, it's completely different from a standard tyre. Do you have any issues with anything going in this gap at all, or anything like that?
Well, I hope not. I mean, you're the first one to mention it, so hopefully
Yeah, I just wondered that was all, because it's so different.
We were advised not to drive flat out, but if you're carrying a sprayer like that, you don't drive flat out anyway.
No.
Most of our travelling is only a mile with these tyres at the most, so
yeah.
we've got, whether you go 20 or 15 kilometres now doesn't matter.
And as well as the extra footprint you're gaining, the less compaction that you're gaining with it, what's stability like? Because you've got a fair old load. When this spray is full, what's it like with that?
Absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a typical mean farmer, and I wouldn't have spent the extra money on 2 new tractors if I didn't think it was worthwhile.
So it had to be spot on.
We've got 4 spraying tractors, and only 1 has got conventional tyres, and the 3 newer ones have got these.
Right. And how do the conventional tyres compare? They're just literally shortening down those working opportunities?
Well, we now got the ordinary tyres pulling the smallest sprayer we've got.
Right.
It's 1,700 litres compared to the other one, it's 2,000, so obviously that's 300 kilos more water you're carrying every time.
Yeah.
And that's for the other one. And that is more the spare one that would get used, and we could be selective as to which bit of ground we drive it over.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the farm here is bone dry. You could have an inch of rain and drive over it the next morning. But other parts you would swim.
So finally then, David, just sum up your time with these Trelleborg PneuTrac tyres.
We were originally only on conventional tyres. On our heavier parts of our ground, especially where we've got slight slopes, we were causing bad ruts. And as I keep saying, ruts is bruised apples you can't afford to do.
No.
And so we had to do something. We looked at buying a Caterpillar tractor, and I think it was Haynes who said, why don't you try these new tyres? And I looked at them and said, they're too expensive, can't think about it. He said, well, even with the new tyres, they're still 40% less than the Caterpillar tractor, aren't they? And so we got some.
Yeah. And was it?
And now we've got 3 pairs of them.
And like when Haynes mentioned the idea of these, did you? I mean, presumably you had a few concerns, a few questions about these.
Yes, and I think we were about the first ones in the country to have them. Sure,
so it was
record.
Into new territory.
We were into a new territory. But I do know of more than one farmer who's followed us.
Yeah, so they've seen what you're doing and gone, well, I bet that.
Yeah. It was interesting, we had a farm visit here a couple of years ago, and of course we're all supposed to be looking at the trees. Nobody looked at the trees, they were far more interested in the machinery and the, bloody hell, what are those funny things?
Exactly,
and they all came
so different, don't they?
And yeah, they're nice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy them on all my tractors because they're expensive, but for the spraying ones that you've got to go out when the weather's there,
yeah,
yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Good stuff. Well, David, thank you very much for your time and sharing a few thoughts and insights on your business here and on these PneuTrac tyres from Trelleborg. As ever, for more customer reviews like this, go and check out LandPowerTV.com. And as ever, thank you very much for watching. We will catch you again next time.